Arcanas have always been the pinnacle of Dota skins, the cream of the crop when it comes to personalization of our heroes. But obviously, they're not all of equal value, so I think it's time to assess the quality of these things to see how they hold up. After all, these things are for 35 bucks a pop. Let's see if they're worth it. So this is going to be a multi-part series where I review about 4 Arcanas per episode, and I'm going to rank them on visual design, voice lines, spell effects, lore, and animation. I'll then average those rankings together to give it a final all-around score out of 10. So, without further ado, let's spin the wheel and see what we get. Okay, Zeus. This Arcana had a lot of things going for it. The model is well detailed, with his body made of stone and lightning coursing through said body. The hair and the crown are nice details as well, but I can't help but feel it's a bit generic. Like it's Zeus plus. Compared to the other Arcanas that take their heroes in a different direction, this one feels a bit lacking in terms of visual interest. But I guess that also has to do with the lore of this Arcana as well. Don't get me wrong, the model is high quality, but I just don't like the direction they took it in. I will add that it works well with some of his other skins though. 5 out of 10. This Arcana doesn't have voice lines, but it does have a voice filter.
Make your offerings. Zeus is here. Make your offerings. Zeus is here.
And that filter isn't too much to write home about. 5 out of 10. The one spell this Arcana modifies is Thunder God's Wrath, and the effect it offers isn't really all that spectacular or noticeable. It does have a new sound effect though, and it leaves a little sigil on the ground after it kills someone, which is a neat little detail. But even then, this Arcana came out 2 years after Phantom Assassin's Arcana, which had effects for all 4 spells, while Zeus only got changes to 1. 3 out of 10. The lore of this Arcana is not bad. It has its own comic and everything. The crown that bestowed this power on Zeus was a gift from Archwarden, a taste of a promise that if both Ancients are destroyed, Archwarden will restore all of Zeus's lost power. Though Zeus himself doesn't actually believe in this cause at all, he just wanted some of his power restored. I really enjoy this concept and think it works perfectly for Zeus. 8 out of 10. The animation on this one is decent. Each spell has its own custom animation, and the idle pose really sells his deific nature. I will say that it's a bit floaty, but he is traveling around on a cloud after all, so I can't complain all that much. The animation serves its purpose well, and I don't really have much more to say than that. 7 out of 10. Overall, this Arcana gets a 5.5 out of 10 from me. The animation and the lore really carry this one, and I honestly think this one isn't worth the $35 price tag. You're better off snatching this one off the market. Alright, with Zeus down and out, let's see which Arcana we get next. Crystal Maiden. For one of the earlier Arcanas, it's probably one of the best from that time frame. The Arcana itself has a really pleasing color gradient, going from this nice deep blue at the top and descending into a lighter shade. The shoulder drapes have some really nice details on them, and the only thing missing from it is a full set of fitting cosmetics. Speaking of which, I could not find a single set that didn't go well with the Arcana. I don't know what black magic Valve was working, but all of CM's sets fit perfectly with this. 8 out of 10. 9 out of 10. This Arcana doesn't have any voice lines nor a voice filter. It did come out after a decent amount of Arcanas that did provide a voice filter, so there's really not an excuse for the lack of one. 0 out of 10. Just like the Zeus Arcana, this Arcana only affects the ultimate. I will say it is a nice effect though. The howling really brings this to a new level, and the ice blooming up from the ground instead of raining down is a nice visual. It doesn't leave any sort of insignia on the ground like the Zeus Arcana, but still at the same time it was released, there were other Arcanas with effects across their whole kit. 3 out of 10. The lore of this Arcana also coincidentally has a comic to go along with it that features an upcoming hero. This comic in particular has always been one of my favorites, and the banter that Winter Wyvern and Crystal Maiden have around it is very nice and gives us as readers some neat little details about Wyvern as a person. 9 out of 10. Also similar to the Zeus Arcana, this one also makes the hero float. Strange. Anyways, the animations on this one are nice. She has different poses when she's near an enemy, and the twirling during her ult is really good at conveying the graceful yet deadly nature of the ability. 8 out of 10. All around, this Arcana earns a 6 out of 10 from me. Definitely could use some spell effects and a voice filter to bring it to a higher level, but I don't think it's worth the $35 price tag. It goes for about $17 on the market, and that's where I recommend you get this thing from if you're after it. Alright, next hero. Let's see who gets lucky number 3. Dro's Arcana holds a special place in my heart since she's one of my favorite carries, and this Arcana delivers in spades. In terms of visuals, the cloak is probably my favorite piece of it. The design of it is incredibly detailed with frost on the trimmings and leather straps that hold it down. The change of eye color is also a notable detail that we'll get into more in the lore section. The blood splatter isn't something I like all that much, but my problems with it are nitpicky at best. The new hair is nice, and the crossbow could use some work, I think. The spiky wheels attached to the drawstring kind of spoil the elegance it has, and they don't really serve a purpose in the weapon design. A really good design with some minor flaws here and there. 9 out of 10. Our first Arcana with a new voice lines, and what an amazing set of voice lines it is. Just over 40 minutes of dialogue stuffed into one Arcana, and it's decent dialogue no less. Valve brought Jin Hammond back to do the voiceover, and it absolutely rocks. Her tone is serious and full of contempt. It conveys her mood and personality perfectly.
Why should I give you my name? Doesn't matter if they see them coming if they can't get out of the way. What would it take to get me to stop? The impossible.
And I have no complaints. Good job to Jin Hammond and the folks that wrote the voice lines. 10 out of 10. Dro isn't really known for how flashy her spells are, but what we got is pretty decent with a few upsets. First of all, the Frost Arrow and Marksmanship effects have this double helix tracer for some visual flair. The Gust effects aren't too different from default, which is a bit of a shame in my book. The Hurricane Pike effect has more interesting things going on than one of her main skills. The Arcana doesn't have any effects for her Shard or Scepter, which I hope gets changed someday, because you really don't get a full set of spell effects with this Arcana. Also, side note, this Arcana has custom lifesteal effects. Bet you didn't know that. 5 out of 10. Dro's lore was always kind of lazy and generic to me. She was orphaned, taken in by Dros, thinks she's ugly, and is really good at stealth. I find the she thinks she's ugly trope in characters just sad and weird most of the time. There is absolutely no reason for that to be stated in her lore, besides baiting in the lowest common denominators with naivety. But this Arcana is a continuation of her story that alleviates this issue, or at least makes her story more interesting and leaving all that ugly nonsense behind. Dro's experience with the Mask of Madness returned to her the memories of the night her parents died. Of course, the mask left a mental scar in her, and now she's bent on revenge, not only hunting down the bandits who slaughtered her parents, but also any who deserve death from their reprehensible actions. The mask also gave her those red eyes. I love how it continues her story, and I love how it's also entangled with an existing cosmetic. Very good, very cool. 9 out of 10. The animations this Arcana has is honestly full of detail. She has different poses for being in and out of combat, and the hip fire on multi-shot is pretty funny, or at least I think that's what it's supposed to be. And the little spin that the crossbow does when firing an ult proc is epic style. She does a little slide when using Hurricane Pike, and a little jump when she uses her Shard. The only complaint I have is that the Gust animation is kinda lackluster. It's strong enough to push people back, and I think the animation could be a bit more forceful than just her gently putting her hand out. 8 out of 10. Overall, this one gets a 8 out of 10 from me. Could definitely use some work in the spell effects department, but overall a great Arcana. Just kinda sad that it's exclusive. RIP future Dromains. Alright, last hero of the video. Let's see who's gonna close it off. Hope it's a good one.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no.
What I appreciate most about this Arcana is that it was bold enough to change the color scheme. Most of the early Arcanas stuck to the hero's original color scheme for one reason or another, but here with Techis, we got a nice amount of red and black rather than the usual yellow and blue. What I appreciate secondly about this Arcana is that it succeeds in making Techis look badass, to some extent, at least. His other skins are played off as jokes, but here we get jagged metal and a porcine theme. The cannon is reminiscent of Gron from the Lord of the Rings movies, and every piece of their armor has rough shapes and sharp points. But this tonal shift from his other skins wasn't intentional, I think. Techis' time in Dota 2 has always been meme-like. Just searching Techis on YouTube will result in countless meme montages of wacky builds and zany antics. But on release, this stigma of Techis being a strictly comedy character wasn't really established, and so his Arcana lacks a lot of those comedic elements that are staples in his other skins. But does it work? Is this more serious direction for Techis sufficient? Well, yes and no. I think Squeeze tusks and the smirk he constantly has makes him look intimidating, and Spleen looks manic rather than giddy with that helmet on. It accomplishes its goal of being intimidating and cool, but it just lacks the detail that is eye-soaringly present in his other skins. 5 out of 10. Again, this Arcana has no unique voice lines and no voice filter. I wouldn't exactly expect Techis Arcana to have an epic voice filter like Legion Commander or Terrorblades, but I really can't give pity points. 0 out of 10. The spell effects of this one are almost non-existent. The only effects this Arcana comes with is this nice gold shimmer on the taser, a different minefield sign, and a different model on the sticky bomb. It's very lackluster all around. 2 out of 10. The lore of this Arcana isn't very interesting. The cannon was just something the Techis made and gave to some sailors, but when they fired it, the cannon was thrown back all the way to the Techis workshop, and then they just decided to wear pig armor and stuff Spoon inside a bombshell for some reason. 2 out of 10. The animation of this Arcana is incredibly eye-catching, I think is a good word. The idle animation itself is, at least. It has so much going on. From Spleen rocking the cannon to Squee looking around and Spoon ramming himself into the side of the thing make it attention-grabbing, but not that distracting from up above. The animations for the spells, though, are just inexcusably bad. The sticky bomb animation does not even match with what's happening. There's no throwing, no launching, Spleen just pushes the cannon and that's it. The reactive taser animation isn't bad, at least. That little jump is a very appropriate reaction to getting tased, I think. The animation for blast off is unchanged from default, and the animation for placing mines is the exact same as reactive taser. The minefield sign animation could be better, but I will say that the channeling animation is enjoyable. But the animation only gets a 3 out of 10 for me overall. We're really ending the first episode of this on a low note, huh? Yeah, the Techis Arcana gets a 2.5 out of 10 overall. Every aspect of it needs work, and you'd get a far better deal just buying their other skins. I personally recommend the Wizard one. And with that, we conclude Part 1. Stick around for Part 2. Thanks a ton for watching until the end. God bless, and until next time.